Part 59. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 581. Golden Summoner. Ha ha ha, there are a lot of corpse materials, which can be used to refine iron corpses. I didn't expect that these people on the Pantheon star would be sent here by the turbulent flow of space. It also saves us the need to go to the Pantheon planet to capture them. Brother Wu, be careful, but don't let these bodies wash away, it will be a waste. Upstream, the killing was over. Just on the edge of the river beach, which stretches for more than 500 meters and is covered with pebbles, more than 200 corpses were dumped on the river beach. Most of them were floating in the river. Those who wanted to cross the river to escape were killed. People in the river. There is a thick ice dam in the river. If there is a summoner here, you can see at a glance that the ice dam is the work of the summoner. There are holes in the middle of the ice dam, and several snares are trapped in the holes of the ice dam. Those who would have originally the corpses washed downstream by the current were caught in the net, like dead fish, lying lifelessly in the water and allowed to be washed away by the water. The expressions of pain and terror were still on their faces, and the wounds on their bodies were still there. The blood had drained away, dyeing the water red. On the edge of the river beach near a forest, there are some cabins made of simple wood. Those cabins are primitive and rough. They seem to be the places where those on the river beach and in the river lived during their lives. But at this moment, those cabins have already collapsed into ruins. A summoned giant, dozens of wild wolves, and hundreds of summoned archers and sword players were coldly searching the gaps and grass in the nearby rocks, making sure not to miss anyone. These summoned soldiers were dragging the corpses one by one to the edge of the river beach and placing them neatly. A young man with lime on his face and a hint of peach blossom in the corners of his eyes was talking to a person nearby while standing beside the corpses that had been collected and arranged neatly by the soldiers on the river beach. He grabbed the corpse of a 40-year-old woman whose neck was cut in half, took out a black pill from her hand, and stuffed it into the mouth of the corpse. I don't know what the elixir was made of. As soon as it entered the corpse's mouth, the corpse's originally pale face instantly turned dark, the skin revealed a trace of metallic light, the wound on the neck gradually closed, and the body became stiff. He stood upright in an instant, motionless with his eyes closed, and then the man with peach blossoms in the corners of his eyes took the blackened corpse into his space equipment with a wave of his hand. Afterwards, the man picked up another corpse, fed the corpse a black elixir, made the corpse change color and stiffen, and then put the corpse into his space equipment. Living people cannot be received into space equipment, but corpses and lifeless puppets can. Judging from the skill of the man's movements, it seemed that this was not the first time he had done such a thing. There was another man whose face also looked like it had been plastered with lime, but he had a thin face and a goatee. He stood by the river and summoned a giant. He asked the giant to pull the net in the river and catch the corpses in the river. The net was pulled to the edge of the river beach. I didn't expect that we could replenish these corpses in the world of god-killing insects this time. The man by the river also smiled and talked. Looking at his expression, he looked like a fisherman fishing in the river. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the miserable corpses soaked in the water. Both men were wearing black robes, and their bodies were full of gloom, as if they had emerged from the tomb. Don't you think it's a bit excessive for the two of you to kill innocent people here indiscriminately? Suddenly, a voice appeared from the sky. Who? The two people by the river reacted very quickly. Almost as soon as they heard the sound, the two people jumped into the air and stood in front of Xiaopingan. At this moment, Xiaopingan looked like a master with immortal style, but the aura on his body was still that of the Six Yang realm, which did not have much deterrence in this world of god-killing insects. Who are you? The man with a thin face and a goatee swept his triangular eyes over Xiaopingan, and then scanned the surrounding sky. He found that Xiaopingan was the only one standing here, and the aura on his body was not strong. The light in a pair of triangular eyes became strange. I was just passing by. I saw blood in the river in the mountains, and the lives were devastated. Come and have a look. Xiaopingan said calmly, then glanced at the corpses on the river beach, and shook his head unbearably. He said lowly and his eyes darkened, we are all human beings. Why did you two kill your own people? Those people are ordinary people who have no power to fight back. If they kill each other like this, I'm afraid even the zergs and beasts won't be able to do it. Ha ha ha, why do you, an outsider, talk so much about our divine tomb sect? Who do you think you are, daring to interfere in our business? The young man with a hint of peach blossom in his eyes looked at Xiaopingan and sneered. His tone was extremely arrogant, and he didn't take Xiaopingan, who seemed to be in the six yang realm, at all. This is the world of the god-killing insects. Isn't it natural that the weak should prey on the strong? Those people are just pariahs on the pantheon. They were dragged here by the turbulent flow of space and lingering. Even if I didn't want their lives, they wouldn't be able to live here for more than a few days. They could die for our God's tomb sect, and it was their blessing to be favored and used by me. God's tomb sect? Xiaopingan had never heard of it, but looking at the appearance of the two people in front of him, they looked lifeless and their faces were as pale as those of a geisha, so they were not good birds. How about you two do your best and let me pay tribute to these dead people? Xiaopingan took a step back and said with a benevolent expression. The two people looked at each other and exchanged strange looks. Oh, you can still requiem, why don't you summon the requiem flag for us to see before we talk? The man with a thin face and a goatee was talking, but he had quietly approached Xiaopingan, and the other person also approached Xiaopingan. What do you want to do? Xiaopingan seemed to realize that something was wrong, his expression changed, and he quickly backed away. You don't know how to live or die, do you still want to leave now? Send it to your door yourself and let me see what you have on you. How dare you come here to die? The young man with a hint of peach blossom in his eyes showed a trace of disdain in the corner of his mouth. Smiling, and then rushed towards Xiaopingan, waved his hand, and an ice cone shrouded in black mist slammed towards Xiaopingan. When he took action, the other goatee also took action. With a wave of his hand, a fire snake flew out of his hand and swept towards Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan retreated violently, but his figure had quietly changed his direction while retreating. He, who was originally sandwiched between the two, flew diagonally to the left, and immediately approached the man with a hint of peach blossom in his eyes. Young man. The young man with a hint of peach blossom in the corners of his eyes rushed over to Xiaopingan. The goatee who was originally on the right wanted to catch up. The three people moved at the same time and instantly became a straight line in the air. The two men had evil smiles on their faces, thinking that they already had a chance to win. But the next second, a disdainful smile appeared on Xiaopingan's lips, and he coldly uttered three words, Emperor's sword. A majestic and tall emperor wearing an emperor's crown suddenly appeared in front of Xiaopingan. He looked at the two chasing people with a majestic look like looking at ants, pulled out the long sword from his waist, and slashed out with one strike. The emperor's sword came across the sky, driving the energy of the surrounding mountains, rivers, water, and terrain, and was as powerful and strong as the power of God. As soon as the sword was unsheathed, the fire snake, ice cone, and black mist that rushed towards Xiaopingan all dissipated instantly like snow under the sun, and then in less than a thousandth of a second, the sword light filled the sky. Me, like piercing a piece of paper with a guillotine, passed over the young man with a hint of peach blossom in the corner of his eyes, and directly evaporated the man's figure in the sword light under the man's astonished gaze. The sword was not yet powerful. Jew, then slashed at the goatee behind him. The goatee's face changed drastically when he saw Xiaopingan summoning the emperor. He summoned an ice shield in an instant. He himself wanted to escape, but his speed was not as fast as the emperor's sword. Almost as soon as his thoughts came out, the ice shield was summoned, and when he wanted to move, the sword light of the emperor's sword had already struck in front of him, and the ice shield he had summoned and his body melted in the sword light. 4 Ashes. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 582. The sword light flashed across the sky, fleeting, like a bright sun suddenly appearing in the gloomy sky, filling the air with righteousness. When the sword light dissipated, the sky became gloomy again. Except for Xiaopingan, the other two people had turned to ashes and disappeared with the wind, leaving no trace. The attack power of the Emperor's sword was so powerful that Xiaopingan even took a breath of air. However, this power is too strong. Just now, when Xiaopingan saw the Emperor's sword killing the monster man in front of him, the man's space equipment also exploded some bottles and jars of miscellaneous things and corpses, but those bottles and jars of miscellaneous things and corpses were also eliminated under the light of the Emperor's sword at the moment of explosion, leaving nothing behind. Something also exploded from the space equipment of the goatee behind him, but those things were also destroyed in the same instant. It disappeared in the sword light of the Emperor's sword. Only a few boundary beads on the two of them. Although they were not damaged in the sword light, they were hit by the sword light like cannonballs. They flew directly downwards, hitting each other along the way. Cut off a few big trees, and then plunged deep into the mountain. 950 points of divine power. Xiaopingan, who was standing in the sky, looked at the divine power consumed by the strike of the Emperor's sword in his secret mandala, and grinned distressedly. With this move just now, he was ready to go. Deliberately showing weakness to the enemy, luring the opponent to take action, and then killing him with one blow. The two guys from the Divine Tomb sect that he just killed were both in the Sixth Sun realm. Only the goatee was a bit more powerful. He was almost close to the Seventh Sun realm, but it was even worse than him now. Their bodies and the defensive ability is obviously a joke in the face of the power of the Emperor's sword. Or perhaps, the two of them still have some powerful methods, but it's just too late to use them. The 9-5 Lord, the sword of the Emperor, is indeed not invincible. With his current ability, he can summon this move 9 times at most, and his divine power will be exhausted and he will be ready to take drugs. Xiaopingan had already made up his mind just now. If this one move of the Emperor's sword could not kill the two of them, then he didn't need to try other techniques. He could just turn around and prepare to run away. Facts have proved that there are not many summoners who can withstand the move of Emperor's sword, especially those of the same level. The few boundary beads that exploded from the two people's bodies had just flashed. Xiaopingan had already seen clearly that they were all fused by him. At this moment, the few boundary beads had sunk into the depths of the ground. If he used Earth Escape to remove them, after fetching the boundary pearl, if someone from the Divine Tomb sect comes here to investigate the scene, they may discover the secret of his Earth Escape technique. This is Xiaopingan's trump card to save his life. He is not prepared to expose it, and if he uses other techniques to dig the ground, digging for the boundary pearl would be a waste of time, so Xiaopingan simply ignored it. Xiaopingan fell from the sky to the edge of the river beach below. As the two men were killed, the soldiers and giants they summoned also dissipated. All the corpses were pulled to the river beach and lined up on the river beach. Among the corpses were men, women, old people, and children over 10 years old, with different faces. Almost all of them had fatal wounds on their bodies, and looking at their clothes, they looked obviously different. Summoners from the world of god-killing insects are different. These people are the ordinary people on the pantheon. Because the pantheon was swallowed up and fused by the god-killing insect realm, they were also swept here by the turbulence of space. Judging from the houses on the edge of the river beach, they may have been grouped together. They have been living here for a few days. Fortunately, they have not encountered any Zerg in the past few days, but unfortunately, they have encountered the two beasts from the Tomb of God sect. This is the tragedy of the week. In the eyes of the two people from the God's Tomb sect, they might just be other people's magic materials, no different from ant trees. The people of the God's Tomb sect were interested in their corpses. Xiaopingan raised his head and glanced at the huge shadow of the planet at the end of the crack in the sky. In addition to these people, who knows how many people on the Pantheon have been involved in the god-killing insect realm by the space turbulence at this moment. The world of god-killing insects doesn't know how many monster Zerg species have rushed to the Pantheon at this moment. Xiaopingan took out the Requiem flag and held a brief Requiem ceremony for these people so that their bodies would no longer be humiliated. Then with a wave of his hand, he summoned the burning sky Suzaku, which spit fire and appeared among those who had lined up the scene. The corpses flew over, and the flames that could melt gold and iron plowed the ground, incinerating the corpses and burning them clean. I hope you can live in a stable and peaceful world in your next life, with no more killings. Xiaopingan took one last look at the river beach, sighed, and in the blink of an eye, he rose into the sky, submerged into the sky, and disappeared. More than half an hour after Xiaopingan left here, there was a sound of piercing the sky. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen people appeared with a layer of lime on their faces, each wearing a black robe. These people were all murderous, yet extremely anxious. Elder Lu, the young sect master, and Hall Master Wu were collecting corpses here just now. The man named Elder Lu had red hair standing on end, a protruding lower jaw, his eyes were more white than black, his appearance was extremely ugly, and there was a chain of bones hanging from the heads of children on his chest. The soul lamps of young sect master and Hall Master Wu have been extinguished just now, and they have been killed. Elder Lu said coldly in a hoarse and dry voice, and took out something like a crystal tombstone in his hand. There were still many flames beating inside, but the soul lamps above the names of the young sect master and Hall Master Wu had been extinguished. The people around me didn't dare to express their anger. The young sect master was actually killed right under their noses. Even if all of them left the god-killing insect realm this time, they would not be able to escape their involvement if they returned. The elder Lu bit his finger and sprinkled a drop of blood into the air. He pointed at the drop of blood with one hand and began to draw strange talisman seals in the void. The blood was also twisting and changing in the air. Shape, Elder Lu began to mutter words, and as he cast the spell, countless ash and dust visible to the naked eye gathered from all directions in the surrounding void and on the ground, forming the young sect master and Hall Master Wu in the void. The general appearance of the two people. Young sect master, Hall Master Wu, who is so cruel that he actually annihilated you into ashes. Elder Lu howled a few times in a hoarse voice, and squeezed out a few muddy old tears from the corners of his eyes. The tomb sect must to avenge you, let the person who killed you, suffer thousands of punishments in our death row, only by sacrificing him into a living corpse can we relieve this hatred. The dust in the sky changed, and finally recondensed in the air into the immortal appearance of Xiaopingan just now, and then the dust dispersed in the direction where Xiaopingan left. Chasing. Elder Lu said one word harshly, and his body rose into the air, chasing Xiaopingan in the direction he left, and other people from the Tomb of the God sect also followed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 583. Elder Lu of the Divine Tomb sect led his team to pursue Xiaopingan. Flying in the sky, Elder Lu waved his hand, and hundreds of skeleton bats flashing with black energy but still having wings appeared in the sky. Each of those skeleton bats was more than 2 meters long, with only bones all over their bodies. Weird bloody runes were flashing, with their mouths open, breathing hard, flying in the air, and then suddenly gathered together, like arrows, and chased in one direction, with lightning speed. The group of bats flew after that. A series of sonic boom screams sounded in the air. Elder Lu saw those bats flying by and waved again. A bone dragon more than 100 meters long with double wings appeared in the sky. The bone dragon was majestic and full of evil spirit. Its eyes were like 2 red lanterns. There was also a layer of blood-colored runes flashing. Elder Lu stood on top of the bone dragon. The other disciples of the Tomb of God sect were like monkeys holding onto the banana tree, all grabbing the tail of the bone dragon and clinging to the bone dragon. On his body, the bone dragon's wings shook, a sonic boom broke through the air, and it flew directly after the skeleton bats. After killing the two trash, Xiaopinggan used illusion to hide his figure, continued to sit on the crane, and flew towards Hoki Mountain. However, after flying like this for more than 2 hours, Xiaopinggan felt hearing the faint movement in the sky behind him. He turned around and saw a group of black skeleton bats flying quickly towards him in the sky behind him, and behind those skeleton bats, there was another. The huge bone dragon flew behind. On the head of the bone dragon and behind him, there were a large number of people whose faces looked like they were smeared with lime. Just looking at the pale faces of those people, Xiaopinggan's heart skipped a beat and he secretly said, "No, God's Tomb section." When Xiaopinggan killed the two scumbags from the Divine Tomb sect just now, there was no one else from the Divine Tomb sect within 100 miles around, and no one else saw him. Xiaopinggan thought that there were only 2 people from the Divine Tomb sect, even if there were other people from the God-killing insect realm and the God's Tomb sect who didn't want to catch up so quickly. Unexpectedly, just so quickly, the people from the God's Tomb sect were chasing after him, and they seemed to be able to lock his whereabouts. Seeing the men behind him coming with force, Xiaopinggan put away the crane without even thinking, used illusions to hide his figure, turned sharply in one direction, and flew towards the peaks everywhere, without a trace. Thinking that those skeleton bats also changed their flight direction in the blink of an eye and flew straight towards him, the illusion didn't work anymore. A skeleton bat accelerated violently and flew towards Xiaopinggan. When it approached Xiaopinggan's range of more than 50 meters, the skeleton bat exploded violently, and a shock wave formed by black gas swept through the void instantly. Ping An's illusion of hiding his figure was suddenly broken, and Xiaoping An's figure was revealed in the air. "You killed the young master of our Divine Tomb sect and you just want to escape." Standing on the bone dragon's head, Elder Lu spit out 3-foot-long bloodlight from his eyes and locked onto Xiaopinggan. The bone dragon spread its wings, twitched its tail, and accelerated rapidly to fly towards him, faster than before. Quickly, those disciples of the Divine Tomb sect who were like monkeys grabbing the bone dragon's tail were all shaken away when the bone dragon's tail shook and spread out in the air, forming a huge encirclement and outflanking them from both sides. "Damn it!" Seeing the scene where the other party was preparing to catch a turtle in an urn, Xiaopinggan's expression also changed. The guy standing on top of the bone dragon's head and speaking, judging from his aura, was definitely in the Seven Suns realm, and he was a senior Seven Suns realm. A strong master is more than half a level higher than himself, who is half a step into the Seven Suns realm, not to mention there are other people from the Tomb of the God sect. This time I have poked a hornet's nest. However, Xiaopinggan has no regrets. If he were to do it again, he would definitely kill those 2 scumbags. Seeing a large group of weird skeleton bats flying towards him, Xiaopinggan did not flinch. With a wave of his hand, a huge ice pick was summoned and flew towards those skeleton bats. As soon as the ice pick flew out, it was right there. It spread out in the air and turned into hundreds of ice cones, stabbing towards the skeleton bats with a sharp sound of breaking through the air like raindrops. Those skeleton bats screamed strangely in the air and flapped their wings, but they all avoided them nimbly. The first move Xiaopinggan made was neutralized by those skeleton bats and had no effect. Before Xiaopinggan could make his second move, a flame with a black aura suddenly descended from his head and fell towards Xiaopinggan's hood, but the huge bone dragon had already flown over Xiaopinggan's head, facing Xiaopinggan. Xiaopinggan breathed out flames. A huge and thick ice shield appeared on top of Xiaopinggan's head. The ice shield dissipated instantly under the burning of the bone dragon's black flames, but the dissipated ice shield did not disappear. Instead, it turned into a soft water shield. The water shield vibrated, like a deformed water ball, and resisted the bone dragon again. The black breath finally dissipated together with the black breath. Sure enough, there are two brushes that can switch between ice and water spells so flexibly and freely. One technique and two techniques. It's just that you killed my young master of the Tomb of the Gods. You and my Tomb of the Gods are no longer sworn in. You are ready to suffer. Die. Elder Lu sneered in the air. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of strange golden zombies with metallic luster all over their bodies and blood-red runes all over their bodies suddenly appeared in the sky. Those golden zombies had their eyes closed, and the white fangs on their mouths were turned out. They looked particularly terrifying, and they could actually fly. As soon as they were summoned, they pounced directly towards Xiaopingan. In addition to these golden zombies, the skeleton bats just now scattered in all directions, forming an encirclement in the air, immediately surrounding Xiaopingan. Coupled with the huge bone dragon above the head and the elder Lu of the Divine Tomb sect who is already in the Seven Suns realm, in such a strong contest, a change in 1 second means that thousands of catastrophes are coming, and the black clouds are overwhelming. The city can knock the opponent into a desperate situation instantly, leaving no room for recovery. The summoners of the God's Tomb sect who surrounded them from both sides also followed suit. With each wave of their hands, countless zombies with golden, silver, or copper-colored brilliance all over their bodies filled the void. Gathered into huge battle formations, they pressed towards Xiaopingan from all directions, leaving no gaps for Xiaopingan. As soon as the two sides fought, Xiaopingan was trapped in a tight siege and seemed to have no chance of survival. Xiaopingan's face was extremely solemn. Before those golden zombies and skeleton bats pounced on him, he waved his hand fiercely. The surrounding sky darkened instantly, and a huge black stone tablet appeared above Xiaopingan, who was summoned by Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan held the huge stone tablet with one hand, his beard and hair flying, like a god descending to earth. There are only 3 words on the black stone tablet, the Tablet of Tears. The Monument of Tears of Yanggong. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 584. As soon as the Weeping Monument came out, the light and shadow of Yanghu and Yanggong appeared on the Weeping Monument. Yanghu looked around with compassionate and kind eyes, just like a loving father seeing his young son, and bowed to the surroundings. In an instant, the surrounding situation changed, and the situation was reversed instantly. The bodies of the golden zombies that rushed towards him stopped instantly. Each golden zombie's eyes shed blood and tears. The original ferocious face suddenly became sad. The golden zombies wailed loudly and backed away quickly, unwilling to fight anymore. The same goes for those skeleton bats. They were originally besieging Xiaopingan. As soon as Yanggong's figure appeared, those skeleton bats also flew away. They no longer surrounded Xiaopingan, but retreated. The bone dragon, which was about to exhale again, let out a long and sad cry, waved its wings, and suddenly rose into the sky, spitting the dark flames into the sky like a spear piercing the sky, as if to pay tribute to the Yanggong. Elder Lu of the Divine Tomb sect, who was originally standing at the head of the bone dragon, was caught off guard. As the bone dragon rose into the sky, it suddenly rushed to a height of 1,000 meters, and suddenly distanced itself from Xiaopingan. The Monument of Tears. Elder Lu suddenly couldn't help but was shocked and angry. Except for Xiaopingan, no one else recognized the small characters on the boundary beads of the Tears Monument, but once this spell is cast, all the summoned objects in the battle will shed tears and retreat in sorrow, so some people also call it the Weeping Monument, the War-Stopping Monument, or the Jinming Monument can also be considered a mistake. The airtight formation composed of various golden zombies, silver zombies, and copper-colored zombies summoned by the disciples of the tomb sect around them suddenly changed from charging forward to collapsing. All the zombies were crying and sad. Retreating, completely confused, no longer approaching, causing the disciples of the tomb sect to be in chaos, and they were all busy taking back the zombies they had summoned. The virtue of Yanggong is respected by heaven and earth, and respected by ghosts and gods. The monument of tears came out, and all the armies started to change things. To be honest, Xiaopinggan was beating drums in his heart before summoning the tears monument. This was just his first plan to deal with the situation at hand, because the secret methods used by the summoners of the tomb sect in front of him clearly and integrated those realms. The things that the beads can summon are obviously different, with a strong sect style. Xiaopinggan is not sure whether the Tears monument will be effective against the zombie skeletons created by the tomb sect using secret methods. But the result made Xiaopinggan overjoyed. The Tears monument was indeed not built. As soon as the monument came out, the Shen tomb sect's killing formation instantly dissipated, and everyone fell on their backs. A tablet of tears will render all the summoning spells of the Tomb of God sect useless, and all advantages will be lost. If you can't use things like summon soldiers and war partners, then all the summoners can only use spells to duel. After discovering that Xiaopinggan had summoned the falling tablet, Elder Lu waved his hand, and in the blink of an eye, the black mist rolled behind him, forming the shape of a portal. The bone dragons, skeleton bats and golden zombies he summoned were all covered by him. He took it back again, and then Elder Lu dropped from the sky with an evil look on his face. With a wave of his hand, a fire dragon blasted towards Xiaopinggan. Facing the fire dragon under the hood, Xiaopinggan waved his hand, and a dozen huge ice picks, like giant dragon-slaying spears, flew out of his hands and faced the difficulty. Without even retreating, they faced the fire dragon directly. The fire dragon's head and body stabbed straight away. Boom! When ice and fire met, it was like thunder in the sky. With a roar, all the ice cones shot by Xiaopinggan shattered into snowflakes and fell from the sky, and the fire dragon also scattered into countless fire rains, bit by bit from the sky, within a radius of a kilometer. Ice and fire fall together, creating a spectacle. It's just that the snowflakes and fire rain flying in the sky merged again and disappeared at the same time. All of a sudden, it was like a heavy fog appeared in the sky, and it expanded instantly, like a huge marshmallow appearing in the sky, making the surroundings. The sky suddenly became foggy and the visibility suddenly decreased. Elder Lu changed his expression again, because the snow and fire turned into mist in the air. This change was beyond his expectation. To control the magic to such an extent, this is no longer powerful, but terrifying, which shows that the other party he has completely calculated every change in the collision between the two sides' spells, and can use this change to create a battlefield situation that is beneficial to him. The person who caused all this is undoubtedly Xiaopinggan. And all of this was not Xiaopinggan's deliberate pursuit. Xiaopinggan discovered that as his soul power increased, especially after he advanced to a high-level shepherd this time, his various changes in control of spells had a negative impact on his abilities. His ability to control battlefields and battles has also increased, and has even reached a level that he could not even imagine before. Now, for him, he can perform countless tricks with a simple water spell, which is also a surprise. Happiness. Be careful, don't let him escape. As soon as Elder Lu saw the mist filling the sky, he knew Xiaopinggan's plan and screamed. Xiaopinggan smiled mysteriously at Elder Lu, but his figure instantly disappeared into the heavy fog and disappeared. Faced with the large-scale clouds and mists that suddenly appeared in the sky, it was difficult to dispel them with ordinary magic spells, unless they could summon strong winds. However, for these people from the Tomb sect, it was obvious that no one had mastered the climatic summoning skills. Even Elder Lu doesn't know how to do it. The disciples of the Divine Tomb sect hurriedly collected the various zombies and summoned objects they had summoned into the secret mandala, and rushed into the clouds and mist in the sky. Clouds and mist covered the sky within several miles. Elder Lu rushed into the clouds and mist, but there was no trace of Xiaopinggan anywhere. Elder Lu roared angrily, waved his hand, and a flame flew out from his hand, clearing a large area of clouds and fog in the space within 100 meters. However, The clouds and fog here had just been cleared, and the surrounding clouds and fog suddenly surged over again, covering that space. After filling it up, if you look around, you can only see within 100 or 200 meters. This pure physical invisibility method coupled with illusions makes it impossible for Elder Lu to lock onto Xiaoping's figure for a while. Elder Lu could only rush into the clouds and mist. Half a minute later, Xiaoping's figure suddenly emerged from the mist behind a disciple of the Divine Tomb sect who flew into the clouds. Xiaoping was holding a Horcrux sword in his hand. Before the god could wait, the disciples of the Tomb sect realized that the long soul weapon sword in Xiaoping's hand had already been slashed out with one strike. The body protection technique of the Divine Tomb sect disciple was passively activated, and a water shield and ice shield suddenly appeared. However, under the sharp edge of the Horcrux sword, the water shield and ice shield instantly collapsed, as if they were made of paper. The long sword in Xiaoping's hand cut directly through the neck of the Divine Tomb sect disciple, killing him with one strike. The Divine Tomb sect disciple only had time to let out a panicked scream, and then the body fell from the air. "Go down. That person is here." A nearby Divine Tomb sect disciple shouted, and a huge fireball blasted towards Xiaoping. The fireball's light illuminated the clouds and mist, and also attracted the attention of the surrounding Divine Tomb sect disciples. Xiaoping didn't bother anymore. Before the fireball came, it had already rushed out of the clouds and towards the ground. "Don't let him run away." A large group of disciples from the Divine Tomb sect fiercely chased Xiaoping's figure. Elder Lu's figure also passed through the clouds and mist, fiercely chasing Xiaoping's flying figure. Xiaoping's figure was extremely fast, and he disappeared behind a mountain in the blink of an eye. The people of the Divine Tomb sect were like a pack of wild wolves, all chasing after him. A few minutes later, behind the mountain ridge, following Elder Lu's roar, hundreds of pitch-black arrows and countless fireballs and ice cones thrown by the surrounding Divine Tomb sect disciples rained down on Xiaoping. "Go over and seal off all the space in front and behind Xiaoping." After the fleeing Xiaoping twisted several times in the air, an arrow pierced his chest. Xiaoping's figure suddenly dissipated and turned into an eagle owl flying rapidly with flapping wings. The eagle owl was then hit by a fireball and disappeared instantly without a trace. "Where is anyone?" "No one." "No," the eagle owl added illusions and was fooled. Elder Lu's expression changed, and his face that had been painted with lime suddenly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 585. More than 10 days later, a man with a thin body, an unflattering horse face, a pair of shining triangular eyes, and wearing a black mage robe, Shiren flew from a distance, and finally flew to God-killing. Within the realm of Hoki Mountain in the insect realm. Hoki Mountain is extremely majestic, a huge mountain range tens of thousands of meters high, stretching for thousands of kilometers, straight into the clouds. Around Hoki Mountain, thousands of mountains come to protect Hoki Mountain among the mountains, giving it a solemn aura. Several giant turtles carrying the city floated in the sky and gathered around Hoki Mountain. 4 waterfalls, like white water dragons, flew down from the mountains more than 10,000 meters high in the 4 directions of Hoki Mountain. Passed through the clouds and flowed into a large rushing river around it. On the ground, a huge city group was built on the mountain, surrounding Hoki Mountain, almost tens of thousands of ordinary kilometers. In the sky on the ground, you can see countless summoners flying around at any time, and it is extremely lively. If it weren't for the huge space crack like a crack in the sky at the top of Hoki Mountain and the gloomy dark red oppression all over the sky, this place would simply not be like the human world, with the atmosphere of a fairyland. And under the huge crack in the sky, the majestic energy in front of you, the mountain is like a sharp sword that cuts through the sky, looking even sharper and sharper. What a big city! The horse-faced summoner flew here and looked at the lively scene of Hoki Mountain in front of him. He couldn't help but feel horrified and let out an admiration. Seeing the horse-faced man flying towards here from a distance, the three Divine Tomb sect disciples who were wandering in the surrounding airspace as if their faces were plastered with lime immediately flew towards the horse-faced man. One of them took out a mirror in his hand and looked at the horse-faced man from a distance. Seeing someone holding a mirror and looking at him, the horse-faced man frowned, his triangular eyes flashed fiercely, and he stared at him without fear, snorting coldly, "Who are you? What are you holding in your hands? Do you dare to take care of me?" When the horse-faced man's appearance was reflected in the mirror, he still looked like the horse-faced man, unchanged at all. A disciple of the Divine Tomb sect next to him was holding a scroll in his hand. On that scroll, it was the incarnation of Xiaoping'an a few days ago. Several disciples of the Divine Tomb sect looked at the appearance of the summoner with the immortal spirit and found that the person in the mirror was different from the person in the painting, so they relaxed a little. Fellow Taoist, don't be surprised. We are members of the God's Tomb sect of Hoki Mountain. There is a very vicious man who is murdering and robbing people outside. He is crazy. In order to maintain the stability of Hoki Mountain, we are arresting the murderer. If this fellow Taoist sees the portrait in my hand, this murderer may have clues about this murderer. Please inform our God's Tomb sect about the news. Once verified, our God's Tomb sect will definitely thank you greatly, a disciple of the God's Tomb sect holding a mirror said proudly. "Oh, what's the big thank you?" The horse-faced man licked his lips, showing a Philistine and greedy look. The trace of unhappiness just now seemed to have disappeared. "Boundary beads, money, or even divine springs, you can choose whatever you want." A disciple of the God's Tomb sect said something, and when he saw someone flying from the distance, 3 disciples of the God's Tomb sect immediately flew towards the person in the distance. The horse-faced man squinted his eyes as he watched the 3 disciples of the Tomb of God sect fly away, and then thought to himself, luckily he was prepared, and the Tomb of God sect was indeed prepared in Hoki Mountain. This horse-faced man is Xiaoping'an. After the fight with Elder Lu and others, Xiaoping'an summoned the eagle owl and illusions to lure away the people of the tomb section. He also found a place to hide himself with a blinding leaf. After some dealings, Elder Lu searched for him nearby for a day, but there was no trace, so he had to leave with the people from the human god tomb section. Xiaoping'an didn't change his appearance again until 2 days later. We took a detour and arrived at Hoki Mountain today. Facts have proved that Xiaoping'an's move to change his appearance is very necessary, and the effect is really powerful. The mirror held by the Divine Tomb sect disciple just now is a magic weapon similar to a face mirror. It can see a person's true face. If Xiaoping'an hadn't mastered the secret method of transformation before, he would have been killed just now. People discovered it. After the transformation, it is almost like a different person. In the past few days, Xiaoping'an has not been in contact with anyone, and just after seeing the performance of the disciples of the Divine Tomb sect, Xiaoping'an discovered that the hometown of the Divine Tomb sect seemed to be in Hoki Mountain, and he was bumped head-on. The Shen Tomb sect's lair is here. Xiaoping'an continued to fly towards Hoki Mountain. The city cluster of Hoki Mountain gradually unfolded in front of Xiaoping'an. Looking at the summoners flying in the sky, Xiaoping'an was also a little shocked. What a big city. The scale of the city in Hoki Mountain is definitely larger than that of Shangjing City. It is completely the largest city Xiaoping'an has ever seen. What's even more terrifying is that the people in this city seem to be at least 6 Yang Realm summoners. The summoners here come from all over the world of Yuan Kaiu. Compared with the number of summoners gathered in the Immortal Sea, they are not on the same level at all. As per the old rules, when Xiaoping'an came to this place, he found a lively restaurant to eat. While eating, he listened to the chats of other summoners in the restaurant, which was regarded as gathering information. As expected, the news of the murder of the young sect leader of the Tomb of God sect has spread throughout Hoki Mountain. There are people in the restaurant talking about the Tomb of God sect offering a heavy reward to capture the summoner who killed their young sect leader. Anyone who can provide accurate information will be rewarded. 10 million gold coins, or a divine spring from the 7 Yang realm and the 8 Yang realm can be chosen. Can you actually reward the divine spring of the 7 Sun realm? Damn it, after hearing this news, Xiaopinggan almost wanted to tie himself up and send him to the tomb section. He is now looking for Xuanhuan. However, the Tomb of God sect still doesn't know who the summoner who killed their young sect leader is and what his name is. They only have a portrait, and they also know that the summoner can summon the Tears Monument. Summoners who can summon the Tablet of Tears are too rare, almost fewer than Saint Masters. This is the only clue to the Tomb of God sect. Xiaopingyan was secretly vigilant in his heart, because he had never demonstrated the technique of the falling monument in front of others before, so the Divine Tomb sect would not suspect him. However, if the Divine Tomb sect did not die out in the future, he would use the falling monument again. If you use this technique, you might be suspicious. Therefore, the summoning spell of the Tablet of Tears must not be used in the future except as a last resort. In addition to the news of the death of the young master of the Divine Tomb sect, Xiaopingyan also knew a lot of other news, and all kinds of news were disturbing, such as the magic door opened and the reappearance of the ancient relics, the big snobs in Hoki Mountain who were preparing to establish a Hoki alliance in Hoki Mountain to deal with the current situation, and the world of god-killing insects. Outside Xuanhuan, the turmoil in various parts of the world has intensified. There is also talk in the restaurant about where a certain saint master has appeared and learned what secrets of initiation, etc. Have you heard? The Wanchen sect is now preparing to recruit dead soldiers to go to the Wanchen Star. As long as they are brave and not afraid of death and meet the requirements of the Wanchen sect, the Wanchen sect will directly reward Xuanhuan. A voice suddenly appeared in Xiaopinggan's ears. Xiaopinggan's spirit was shocked. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 586. Wouldn't it be courting death to go to the Star of the Gods now? The Star of the Gods has been swallowed up and fused with the space of the god-killing insect realm. It is destined to be dissolved. It's just a matter of time. Now, in addition to the Zerg, there are also ancient relics raging on the Star of the Gods. How many people will go? If it wasn't dangerous, the Wanchen sect wouldn't have offered such a high price. The sacred spring of the Netherworld Realm's formation realm would be given as promised. That's right. Nowadays, the divine springs that lead to the Nether realm and the Incarnation realm in the god-killing insect realm are getting harder and harder to find. Last year at the auction in Hoki Mountain, someone even brought out the divine spring that led to the Nether realm. This year, Tanja realm the divine springs are no longer visible. I plan to leave the world of the god-killing insects in a few days and go to other secret realms. When Xiaopinggan heard this, he couldn't help but stood up and walked directly towards the place where he was speaking. It was a table of guests who had just sat down in the restaurant. There were 2 summoners, one fat and one thin. Their auras were both in the 6 Yang realm. The fat summoner had 2 small beards and looked kind-faced, while the thin one looked kind. The summoner's eyes were lively, and he looked like a shrewd and powerful character. Seeing Xiaopinggan walking straight over, the 2 summoners who were chatting glanced at each other. They were both a little wary and stopped talking. It was because Xiaopinggan's face with a horse face and triangular eyes looked, not someone to be trifled with. Xiaopinggan walked to the table of the 2 people, smiled at them, showed a smile that he thought was kind, turned to the waiter who was summoned from the store, and said, "Waiter, these 2 brothers, the consumption of this table is mine." Ahem, what does this brother mean? We don't seem to know each other before. The summoner with a double beard looked at Xiaopinggan and asked with squinted eyes. This is a restaurant, a public place. Seeing that Xiaopinggan behaved quite politely, and the aura on his body was only in the 6 Yang realm, the 2 people were not nervous. Let me introduce myself first. My surname is Mei, and my name is Mei Zheng. I am new to the world of god-killing insects. I want to find some opportunities to advance to the nether realm. I just heard two people there who seem to have similar experiences to me. I feel the same way, so I took the liberty to come here and want to chat with you two and exchange news. Please don't mind me, brothers. I will pay for all the expenses you two spent in this restaurant today. Mei Zheng just doesn't have this kind of person, and now Xiaoping'an is becoming more and more casual in naming his avatar. Ha ha ha, brother, you are very polite. If you don't mind, please sit down. Let's share a table and chat while eating. Is this considered fate? The thinner summoner also laughed and asked Xiaoping, and he sat down and introduced himself. My name is Guo11. Then he pointed to the fatter summoner. This is brother Zhou Zixin. The two of us also met in the wild a few days ago, and then came here together. This Hoki mountain is looking for opportunities. Xiaoping'an asked the waiter to serve some wine, food, and dishes here, and then talked about what he had seen and heard in the Immortal Sea before, and started chatting with the two of them while eating. Guo11 and Zhou Zixin come from Hulu Mountain. Hulu Mountain is another human race gathering area 78,000 to 80,000 kilometers away from here, but it is not as lively as here. There are many medicinal materials in Hulu Mountain, and I heard that there are many unique to the god-killing insect world. The treasures of heaven and earth, so like the Immortal Sea, attract many summoners to go there. The two of them have never been to the Immortal Sea, and they are very interested in the situation of the Immortal Sea. Xiaoping'an said, and the two of them listened with interest. And the news told by Guo11 and Zhou Zixin is not considered a secret in the world of god-killing insects. It is just what they have seen and heard, and they have nothing to hide. The three of them all want to find the divine spring that leads to the nether realm, but the divine spring that leads to the nether realm is not that easy to obtain. It was Guo11 who just said that he was ready to leave the god-killing insect realm to try his luck in other secret realms. To be honest, I have been to the immortal city of the Huanshen sect in the Immortal Sea before, but the recruitment of disciples there is very strict and requires a lot of insect crystals for entrance. I haven't collected enough insect crystals for them yet. That's why I'm planning to come here for luck. Xiaoping'an shook his head and sighed. Just now I heard from Brother Zhou that the Huanshen sect was recruiting dead soldiers. If anyone is willing to go to the Huanshen star, they can get the divine spring of the nether realm. Why don't you two? Would you like to give it a try? Brother Mei, do you know that the Huanshen sect has another name, called the Huan Death sect? This Huanshen sect is not a wasted name. Zhou Zixin put a piece of fragrant venison into his mouth and shook his head as he said, then the current situation on the Huanshen planet is extremely dangerous. Anyone who really wants to go will risk a narrow escape. That's why the Huanshen sect is so generous. Otherwise, do you think he would be so generous with the divine spring that leads to the nether realm? What exactly are the dangers? Those Zerg who were in the Abyss Nest now have a fully opened space channel with Pantheon. There is no difference between entering Pantheon and entering the Abyss Nest. This is just one of them. Guo11 raised a finger. And Xiaoping'an explained, secondly, in addition to those Zerg races, a large number of ancient relics have also entered the Pantheon. These ancient relics are more dangerous existences than the Abyss Zerg. Oh, what is this ancient remnant? Xiaoping'an asked. Brother Mei, haven't you heard of it before? Excuse my ignorance, I have never heard of it before, and I was just about to ask you two for advice. Zhou Zixin shook his head and said, Brother Mei, there is no need to be polite. It's normal that Brother Mei has never heard of it, because this ancient remnant can only be found in the god-killing insect world, and it is almost invisible. It has not been seen for many years. It was only when I heard someone talk about it a few days ago that I learned that there is a legend that this so-called ancient remnant is actually one of the oldest Zerg races in the god-killing insect tribulation. It's just that these Zerg races are different from ordinary Zerg races. This ancient remnant race likes to invade and summon the most. After the master's body merges with the summoner, it takes the summoner's body and turns them into summoners. Therefore, these ancient survivors look like humans, like summoners one by one. The legendary gods who fell in the god-killing insect tribulation, was destroyed by the ancient survivors, so brother May can imagine how difficult it is to deal with those ancient survivors. Today's summoners entering the Pantheon star are equivalent to giving meat to the ancient survivors. Those ancient survivors are eager for us to enter. Are those ancient survivors difficult to deal with? Xiaopingan asked. Of course, if those ancient relics were just summoners or just Zerg, it wouldn't be difficult to deal with them. At worst, they would be the same as us, but they can not only cast our various spells, but also integrate the world beads, and they are extremely powerful. At the same time, they also have the Zerg have some weird abilities, and their force value in close combat is also through the roof. The so-called ancient remnants are ancient alien species, and their survival is not due to luck. Let's put it this way, one ancient remnant of the Illumination realm is definitely more difficult to deal with than several summoners of the Illumination realm or Zergs of the Illumination realm put together. I would rather deal with a few insects of the illusion reality or the Zerg of the Illumination realm. Summoners who are in the world do not want to compete with the ancient relics in the current state. I heard that those ghosts can become stronger and stronger by devouring summoners. Guo 11 said with some lingering fear. Why do those ancient remnants appear on Pantheon? Because of the devouring of space. Only when space devouring occurs, can the demon door of the ancient relics in the god-killing insect realm have a chance to open. The ancient relics like to seize bodies and devour people's bodies the most. Those human races on the Pantheon planet are all ancient, the target of the surviving family's body snatching and devouring. Xiaopingan nodded solemnly, understood, thank you too for your advice. Since the Pantheon is already so dangerous, why is the Pantheon sect willing to pay such a high price to invite dead soldiers to the Pantheon? The core figures of the Wanshen sect are all space travelers from the Wanshen star. When their home planet is in trouble, the Wanshen sect naturally wants to rescue more people. As long as there are many dead people entering the Wanshen star, they can resist the Wanshen sect to a certain extent. The Zerg and ancient relics on the god planet, the people on the Wanshen planet have more opportunities to escape. I heard that the Wanshen sect has prepared several secret settlements in the god-killing insect realm and is sending out disciples of the Wanshen section looking around to accommodate those who escaped from the Pantheon star, as well as the powerful demigods of the Pantheon sect. Their divine kingdom can also accommodate many human races on the Pantheon star. Guo 11 touched his chin. Many people are saying that the Wanshen sect is actually delaying the destruction of the Wanshen star. They want to wait for their strong demigods to become gods. Once the Wanshen sect can become gods, their gods will be it can put the entire Pantheon star into the kingdom of God, so that the civilization and human race of the entire Pantheon star can continue. After chatting with the two of them, Xiaopingan finally understood what was going on. Wanshen sect is also a major force in Hoki Mountain, and it recruits dead soldiers in Hoki Mountain. After dinner, Xiaopingan treated guests, and the three of them parted ways in the restaurant. Guo 11 and Zhou Zixin both wanted to try their luck at Hoki Mountain to see if they could get the divine spring. If not, they might have to leave the god-killing insect realm. Xiaopingan, who left the restaurant, did not go to Wanshen sect for the time being, but found a place to live in Hoki Mountain. He also wanted to see if there was any other place in Hoki Mountain where he could get the divine spring besides Wanshen sect. In addition to the Tomb of God sect and the 10,000 Gods sect, Hoki Mountain also has organizations such as Feishan Tower, Dragon King sect, Hoki Alliance, etc. These organizations are also very powerful, and at least there are strong men from the Nine Yang realm who are in charge. After staying for a few days, Xiaopingan discovered that there were as many summoners as Crucian carp crossing the river who wanted to come to Hoki Mountain to use the divine spring. The big powerful sects in Hoki Mountain, such as the Divine Tomb sect, etc., can indeed get the Divine Spring, but if they want to get the Divine Spring among these sects, the first condition is to join these sects, and at the same time, they must have a good understanding of the sections. It is only possible to obtain it after making a huge contribution to the door and going through a long inspection period. For a summoner, it would take decades to cross from the 6 Yang realm to the 7 Yang realm, which is considered normal. Being able to cross over within a few years is like riding a rocket. As for money, Xiaoping'an has quite a few, but at this time, high-level Xuanhuan only appears occasionally in the auction house. The opportunities that can be bought with money are too few, and not everyone has the opportunity to encounter them. After staying in Hoki Mountain for a period of time, Xiaoping'an discovered that he wanted to get the fastest chance to advance to the 7 Sun Realm Divine Spring from the 7 Sun Realm. After going around and around, he was still in the 10,000 God section. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 587. A few days later, the sky became slightly brighter, and the Wanshan sect branch of Hoki Mountain. The Wanshan sect is also one of the major forces in Haoqi Mountain. The Wanshan sect has a branch in Haoqi Mountain. This branch is located on a towering main peak several thousand meters high in the east of Haoqi Mountain. The Wanshan sect's power in Haoqi Mountain is greater than it is even bigger in the Immortal City. At the foot of the mountain below this branch, the continuous cities and buildings are the property of the Wanshan sect here, and their scale is at least twice as large as that of the Immortal City. Xiaoping'an flew from the air and landed outside the mountain gate of the Wanshan sect branch. 40 or 50 summoners had gathered here, including men and women, with different appearances. Judging from the aura, those gathered here were all 6. There are summoners in the Yang realm, and their aura is very solid, and there are no newcomers who have just advanced to the 6 Yang realm. As soon as Xiaoping'an came down, a group of people looked at him. Xiaoping'an looked over coldly. Those who looked over consciously withdrew their gazes. Everyone felt the new horse-faced and triangular eyes. Men are not easy to mess with. Here comes another one. There are indeed many people who are not afraid of death. There were quiet murmurs from the crowd. Rather than being stuck in the 6 Yang realm all your life, why not give it a try? Everyone comes here for the Divine Spring. Nonsense, if it weren't for the rare Divine Spring, who would come here to risk their lives? Although Pantheon is dangerous, there are still people who are willing to take risks for the Divine Spring. The summoners who dare to come here are not ordinary characters. Xiaoping'an stood among the crowd and waited quietly. People kept flying in, landing among the crowd, and joining the waiting team. Looking at the Hoki Mountain branch of the 10,000 God sect in front of him, Xiaoping'an was filled with emotion. The fate between him and the 10,000 God sect was really deep. After leaving the Immortal Sea and coming to the Hoki Mountain, he actually became related to the 10,000 God sect again. There are too many people who want to get the sacred spring of the 10,000 God sect, so no matter how powerful the Blood Demon sect is, they cannot stop others from joining the 10,000 God sect or doing things for the 10,000 God sect. In the other courtyard in front of you, you can see the red-robed deacons, black-robed disciples, and white-robed disciples of the Wanshan sect flying around in the sky from time to time. White robes are in the 6 Yang realm, black robes are in the 7 Yang realm, and red robes are in the 7 Yang realm. A leader in the 7 Sun realm, he holds the position of deacon in the Wanshan sect. After about half an hour, in the dark sky, in the east, there was a faint hint of dark red light. This was dawn. A red-robed deacon with white hair and black eyebrows walked out of the mountain gate at this time. He glanced at everyone waiting outside, nodded, and said straight to the point, "The Wanshan sect is recruiting people to go to Wanshan. This is probably why all of you, the dead soldiers of the star, are here. I won't talk nonsense anymore. Come in with me, and those who can pass the assessment can be recruited and get a share of the divine spring of the 7 Suns realm." After speaking, the red-robed deacon turned around and walked towards the upper gate, and everyone outside the mountain gate followed him in one by one. Entering the mountain gate, turning around a forest, a huge school ground appeared in front of everyone. On the school ground, there was a tall and rusty iron lion with a terrifying weight. The iron lion was more than 7 meters high, more than 10 meters long, and more than 3 meters wide. I don't know what it was put here for. The red-robed deacon led everyone to the iron gate and pointed at the rusty iron lion. This iron lion weighs 170,000 kilograms. The first level of the assessment is to be able to turn this iron lion with both hands without using magic. If the lions gather above your head, it is considered a pass. Xiaopinggan looked at the iron lion. It weighed 170,000 kilograms, which is 85 tons. For a summoner in the 6 Yang realm, it is not difficult to summon a giant to lift such an object, but it requires physical strength. It is not easy to lift such a heavy object with strength. This weight is equivalent to lifting a heavy train car. I'll go first. A summoner standing in front, who was as strong as an ox and had messy hair, stepped forward, rolled up his sleeves, roared, grabbed the huge iron lion with both hands, and suddenly the iron lion raised it above his head and paused for 3 seconds. When the man pushed the huge iron lion over his head, the man's feet were directly pressed half a foot into the ground with a pop. The man put down the iron lion, and there was a roar on the ground, and everyone's feet shook slightly. The red-robed deacon nodded, passed. The summoner standing with his feet in the pit grinned, pulled his legs out of the pit, and stood aside. Another summoner with a cold face walked up and raised the iron lion with both hands. After staying for a few seconds, he placed the iron lion heavily on the ground. Pass, next one. The red-robed deacon just watched calmly from the side. People kept coming up to lift the iron lion. More and more pits were left on the ground next to the iron lion. Some people could lift the iron lion, but others found it extremely difficult to lift it. 2 summoners came up. I tried, but even with all my strength, I could only hold up the iron lion with a blushing face, but I couldn't hold it above my head, so I couldn't help but retreat in despair. A female summoner dressed in colorful clothes and with pigtails on her hair went up and tried, but she couldn't lift it and could only shake it, making the iron lion move a few steps on the ground. The woman gritted her teeth and had a look on her face. He looked at the red-robed deacon unconvinced and argued, "Why do we need to hold such a test? We are summoners. When fighting people, it is enough to summon us with magic. Why test our physical strength? What should you do if your divine power is exhausted, or you encounter an enemy in an environment where you cannot use your divine power? Do you let the enemy wait for you to recover slowly? At that time, physical strength is your combat power." Hong Deacon Robe said calmly, "Those who can lift this iron lion will have a greater chance of survival when they get to the Pantheon. Those who can't lift it will have weak blood, muscles, and bones, making it difficult to face the complex environment. When they get there, the probability of survival is not very high. It is just to provide food for the ancient survivors and the Zerg. Although our 10,000 God sect is recruiting dead soldiers, we don't want people to die for no reason." The female summoner opened her mouth, but finally had nothing to say and retreated. The woman went down, and an old man with a resolute face and white hair came up and tried to lift the iron lion. The old man had thin arms and legs. He gritted his teeth and lifted it extremely hard, trembling, and all the bones in his body were shaking. The way he lifted the iron lion made Xiaopinggan feel a little scared. Seeing the old man's blood vessels bulging all over his body, his face ferocious, his eyes bursting with bloodshot eyes, his trembling hands just raising the iron lion over his neck, and drops of blood seeping out from under his skin, Xiaopinggan secretly said, "Not good." Click. The old man's legs, which were pressed into the pit, broke off instantly with a terrifying crisp sound, and a mouthful of black blood spurted out from the old man's closed mouth. It all flowed out of the old man's nose, eyes, and ears. Bloody, he leaned back and fell, and the huge iron lion directly hit the old man heavily. The old man fell heavily to the ground, and his legs and calves in the pit were all broken. He had fallen to the ground, and his legs were still in the pit. The bones were exposed, with only a layer of skin attached. It was extremely miserable, but the iron lion did not hit the old man, but was held firmly by a giant more than 10 meters tall summoned by the red-robed deacon with one hand. "I can do it, ahem, I can lift it, give me another chance, I want the divine spring, I want the divine spring in the Seven Sun realm, I have been running for more than 50 years for the divine spring in the Seven Sun realm. Years, this is my last chance, I can't wait any longer." The old man vomited blood, shed tears, and wailed on the ground, trying to get up again. All the summoners were silent and felt sad. The old man's despair, wailing and struggling were not a reflection of everyone. If everyone had no other options, no one would be willing to take such a gamble with their own lives. Not every carp can transform into a dragon, and not every summoner has the opportunity to advance to the nether realm. Go ahead. The god-killing insect realm is not suitable for you, and the pantheon is not suitable for you. I sympathize with you. But the divine spring of the nether realm of the Xuanhuan sect is very precious, and every drop can only be used where it should be used, and cannot be used for charity. The red-robed deacon waved his hand, and two white-robed disciples appeared and directly put the one that was still there. The wailing old man stood up on the ground and sent him away indifferently. Next, Xiaopingan walked out calmly, came to the iron lion, grabbed the iron lion with only one hand, and gently lifted it. The 170,000 Jin iron lion had been lifted above his head by him, but Xiaopingan's feet were still standing firmly on the ground, his feet did not sink into the pit in the ground. The people around were silent for a moment, and you could hear the drop of a needle. Several summoners who had just lifted the iron lion were even more stunned. Some people swallowed a mouthful of saliva and rubbed their eyes. What did this mean? No one was more shocked than them. Understand. The red-robed deacon looked at Xiaopingan's feet standing flat on the ground, his eyes shrank, he took a deep breath, nodded, and said two words, "Not bad." Xiaopingan put down the iron lion calmly, like putting down a feather, and then stood aside calmly. "What's your name?" the red-robed deacon asked someone's name for the first time. "Mei Zheng." "Are you also here for the Seven Sun Realm Divine Spring?" "Yes." The red-robed deacon nodded and waved his hand, and a white-robed disciple from the Xuanhuan sect appeared next to him. The red-robed deacon pointed at Xiaopingan and said, "Take him directly to Xuanhuan Hall to see Director Mu." Under the leadership of the white-robed disciple of the Xuanhuan sect, Xiaopingan left the school grounds directly under the envious eyes of a group of people. 10 minutes later, the white-robed disciple of Xuanhuan sect brought Xiaopingan to a glorious hall and asked Xiaopingan to wait outside the hall. He went in to report. A minute later, the white-robed disciple of Xuanhuan sect came out and asked Xiaopingan. He was brought into the main hall and met the minister Mu. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 588. The pastor is not a man, but a woman. To put it bluntly, she is an old woman with a majestic temperament. Minister Mu was wearing a long blue dress and sitting behind a long table. She wore a towering purple gold crown on her head of silver hair. The silver hair was neatly coiled on her head. A pair of the red phoenix eyes are exceptionally sharp and bright, making the fine crow's feet at the corners of the eyes look particularly sharp. When Xiaopingan came in, the pastor was lecturing a deacon in red. There are many people who have been swept into the god-killing insect realm by the space turbulence. There may be millions of people. Many of them have died. The intelligence from Duyan Mountain has been verified. The rest will be left to you. After you go and find those people, you take them directly to Wanling City and hand them over to Wanling City for resettlement. If you encounter anyone who dares to harm the people of Wanling Star, no matter what sect they are involved in, kill them if necessary. You can handle it decisively on your own, everything will be taken care of by the Wanshan section director. Mu's words were as cold as ice and snow. Yes. The red-clothed deacon bowed, and then retreated. Before leaving, he happened to meet Xiaopingan and glanced at Xiaopingan. The two passed by each other. Good God! If it hadn't been for the fact that he had changed into another body, Xiaopingan would have almost said hello to the Liangtian in front of him. What a coincidence! I didn't expect that after leaving the Immortal Sea, I would still see old acquaintances from the Immortal Sea here. It was really fate. Liangtian had no idea that the summoner with a horse face and triangular eyes who came in front of him was also an old acquaintance of his. After receiving the mission, he hurriedly left. Chief Mu, he has been brought. The Wanshan sect disciple who brought Xiaopingan here reported. I've met Minister Mu. Xiaopingan bowed to Minister Mu in a neither humble nor condescending manner. Manager Mu glanced at Xiaopingan, waved his hand, and a ray of light flashed. In front of Xiaopingan, a simple Bagua bronze mirror was suddenly summoned. The bronze mirror was more than 3 feet long, round, and surrounded by the Bagua lines looked extremely mysterious. The bronze mirror emitted a faint white light, whirling around Xiaopingan and taking pictures of Xiaopingan's body. However, Xiaopingan's body appearance did not change in the bronze mirror. It remained the same. Seeing what he was like now, the pastor nodded, and with a wave of his hand, the summoned bronze mirror disappeared. Xiaopingan felt that the bronze mirror was similar to a facial mirror, but he didn't expect that the bronze mirror could be summoned using magic. That's right, it's your true colors, you're not hiding your true colors. Director Mu nodded and slowly spoke. I heard from Deacon Chi that you are quite strong. You are already at the peak of the current situation, and you are physically strong and have divine power that is different from ordinary people. Why do you want to come to Wanshan sect to be a dead soldier? If you're not a dead soldier, how can you quickly get the divine spring that leads to the nether realm? Xiaopingan said in a slightly hoarse tone. I see you are not very old, why are you so anxious? The road to becoming a god is to swim against the current and seize the day. If I don't even dare to go to the Pantheon, and am greedy for life and afraid of death, then how can I talk about becoming a god? Xiaopingan is still cold and arrogant. Okay, you are ambitious. Manager Mu smiled slightly and looked at Xiaopingan with a somewhat appreciative look. If you dare to go, there will be a divine spring. Give me the divine spring and I can go there now. Xiaopingan was not afraid. Manager Mu glanced at Xiaopingan, nodded, stopped talking, just waved his hand, and asked the white-robed disciple to take Xiaopingan down. After leaving here, Xiaopingan realized that it was the Red Deacon who was in charge of the assessment before, who was not sure whether there was anything wrong with him, so he specially asked someone to bring him to Director Mu for a look. Now Director Mu nodded, then it means that you have passed the test. The white-robed disciple did not take Xiaopingan back to the school grounds just now. Instead, he took Xiaopingan into a spacious and heavily guarded underground passage. After walking in the underground passage for more than 10 minutes, Xiaopingan saw the underground passage. The end of the passage is in the belly of a huge mountain. In the middle of the mountain, there is a dark space crack more than 10 meters long that is slowly rotating and twisting like a whirlpool. Dark red light shines through the space crack. When you come out, in addition to the light, through the space crack, you can also see lightning and thunder on the other side of the crack, and the outline of a huge planet is vaguely visible. Xiaopingan's heart was slightly shocked. Could it be that this place can lead to the Pantheon star? The white-robed disciple who sent him here asked Xiaopingan to stay here and wait, and then left. Xiaopingan did not move, because in addition to a few white-robed disciples, there was also a red deacon sitting here. The red-clothed deacon sat cross-legged and closed his eyes on top of the crack in space, seemingly indifferent to everything in the heart of the mountain, like a sculpture floating in the air, but he exuded the energy of a strong man in the Seven Sun realm. The smell is very intimidating. After Xiaopinggan waited here for more than 10 minutes, he saw Deacon Qi, who had previously assessed him, come in with more than 20 people. Needless to say, the others who did not come must have been eliminated. Deacon Qi seemed to already know that Xiaopinggan was here. He was not surprised to see Xiaopinggan. After he brought everyone here, he pointed to the space crack in the middle of the mountain and said, "This space crack can lead to thousands of miles. Divine Star, the reason why the Wanchen sect chose to have its annex here in Hoki Mountain was because of this space crack. Hoki Mountain is the place with the most space cracks and void secret realms in the god-killing insect world." "Really?" Xiaopingzin said. "Deacon Qi, can you give us the divine spring now? We can go over there now." The summoner in the crowd with messy hair couldn't hold it back. He took a step forward and said in a rough voice, "This guy was also the first to lift the Iron Lion before. The divine spring will be given to you, but not now. Before you go there, I will tell you the rules of our Wanchen sect." Deacon Qi glanced at everyone. "In order to prevent anyone from going over there to bathe in the divine spring and then secretly use the turbulent flow of space to run back, so everyone should eat one of these before going there." Deacon Qi said, and with a move of his hand, a dark pill appeared. Seeing that thing, Xiaopinggan's nose moved and his face changed slightly. Xiaopinggan felt that the breath on the pill seemed to have some strange connection with the environment and energy in the surrounding space. Something was wrong. If it weren't for Xiaopinggan, Ping An's soul power has grown to a level that is unimaginable to ordinary people, and he can't feel that the pill can actually interact with the environment. This elixir is too strange. "Deacon Qi, what is this?" Xiaopinggan asked directly. "This is poison." As soon as Deacon Qi spoke, the expressions of the people around him suddenly changed. Deacon Qi continued, "This is a special poison refined by the Wanchen section. This poison is made with special things from the god-killing insect world. After eating this poison, if you enter the pantheon but return to the god-killing insect realm, the poison's medicinal properties will be triggered by the environment of the god-killing insect realm, and all the poison will turn into pus below the 8-yang realm." "Blood. What does Wanchen sect mean by giving us poison?" someone in the crowd shouted. "I haven't finished yet. After eating this poison, it will be digested within half an hour. If you eat this poison and are anywhere outside the world of the god-killing insects, this poison will not act. Yes, it will not cause any harm or toxicity to you, but will have some benefits. This poison will only be triggered in the world of god-killing insects. At the same time, this poison will decompose and disappear in 3 situations, and will no longer cause any harm to you." "Harm? What 3 situations?" "In the first case, if you advance to the 8-yang realm and the secret mandala changes drastically again, the medicinal properties of this poison will completely disappear. In the second case, after 70 years of being ingested in the body, the medicinal properties of this poison will also disappear completely naturally. If you eat this poison and enter the Pantheon Star, if you want to leave the Pantheon Star and come back, there are only 2 possibilities under normal circumstances. The first is that you can advance to the 8-yang realm on the Pantheon Star, or live as a human race on the Pantheon for 70 years. Of course, there is another situation where the Pantheon sect will have some tasks on the Pantheon. If you can complete those tasks, you may get rewards. Those rewards, it will accelerate the decomposition of this poison in your body in advance, shortening the time of your life and battle on Pantheon. In addition to these 3 situations, if you eat this poison, before the poison is completely decomposed, if returning to the god-killing insect realm without permission is tantamount to committing suicide." Everyone finally understood that this was the method used by the Wanchen sect to control the dead soldiers who entered the Wanchen Star. That means that when we arrive in the god-killing insect realm, we have to obey the command of the Wanchen section. "If you ask us to be cannon fodder, do we have to go too?" someone in the crowd suddenly started shouting. If you arrive at Wanshen planet and don't want to perform the Wanshen sect's mission, that's completely fine. The Wanshen sect will not force you to perform any tasks. Of course, if you can complete the Wanshen sect's mission, you can obtain the Wanshen sect's mission. Antidote and reward, all of these are voluntary. Let me put it even more extreme. As long as you get there, as long as you can keep yourself alive, even if you find a place to dig a hole and hide yourself and live for 70 years, there is no problem for you to return to the god-killing insect realm after the poison has worn off. The Wanshen sect will never cause trouble for you. If the Wanshen sect does not have the corresponding means, there is no guarantee that you will stay on the Wanshen star. Wouldn't it be like being taken advantage of by providing people with divine springs for free? How could there be such a stupid sect in the world? Having said this, Deacon Chi smiled slightly, and with a move of his hand, a handful of wax pills wrapped with poison came out. You can think about it, the Wanshen sect will never force it. If you have considered it, you can come to me to receive a poison pill. If you eat it, you can go there through the space crack. The divine spring is on the Pantheon star and is ready. You can get it yourself when you get there. If you want to quit, you don't need to take the poison, just turn around and leave here. One person in the crowd hesitated for a moment, turned around and left, choosing to give up. But Xiaopingan walked over directly, and under the watchful eyes of Deacon Chi, he took a wax pill, pinched it open, opened his mouth, swallowed the poison in the wax pill, then turned around and was the first person to fly to the door. In the space cracks of Pantheon. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 589. As soon as he entered the space crack, Xiaopingan felt that his body was rapidly spinning and sinking, as if dark red flames and light and shadow were flying around him. At the same time, the poison he swallowed in his belly began to be rapidly digested. That poison was prepared by the Wanshen sect for summoners in the 6 Yang realm. Therefore, the poison was very special. Almost as soon as it entered the mouth, the poison melted and was absorbed by the digestive tract instantly, and then a trace of strange energy directly it entered Xiaopingan's consciousness and brain. The energy dispersed, and many information and pictures appeared in Xiaopingan's mind. Although what people eat is essentially biological information, adding pictures and information that can enter the consciousness and spiritual realm into the elixir or food that can be eaten in the mouth is the method of a high-level elixir master. In that information, Xiaopingan saw the three-dimensional map of the entire Pantheon in his mind, and also learned about the current situation of Pantheon. The most important thing is that in that three-dimensional map, Xiaopingan also knew he found out where the divine spring of the Seven Suns realm prepared by the Wanshen sect for him was located. It was a coordinate point named B1768 by the Wanshen section. The information in the poison told Xiaopingan that the sacred spring of the Seven Suns realm prepared by the Wanshen sect for him was the divine spring is in a special container underground at this coordinate point. As long as Xiaopingan reaches this coordinate point, he can get the divine spring by searching. The coordinate point of number 1768 is in a place called Chidorihara on Pantheon. This place, on the three-dimensional map that appeared in Xiaopingan's mind, there were very detailed markings and positioning. Wanshen sect is really good at calculating. If you don't take this poison, you won't know where the divine spring prepared for you by the Wanshen sect is. If some guys master some weird secret skills and can spit out the pill after eating it, then, I'm sorry. If you don't take poison, it's like working in Pantheon for nothing. Because it is random to appear in the area of Pantheon after entering the space rift. If you want to get the divine spring, you have to go to Chidorihara. If you encounter danger and die on the way to Chidorihara, then, sorry, it is estimated that 10,000 people will die. Shenzhen can also use the divine spring of the 7 Yang realm again. Among the information that came to mind, the Huanshen sect also explained why they wanted to hide the divine spring in the secret spots on the Huanshen planet, because if they wanted everyone to merge and absorb the divine spring in the god-killing insect world before going to Huanshen divine star, then the 10,000 god sect will face a problem. If someone fuses and absorbs the divine spring to advance to the nether realm and then regrets it after his strength increases dramatically, the 10,000 god sect will most likely be overwhelmed and consume the precious 7 yang realm divine spring. He has also cultivated a powerful enemy for himself in the nether realm, and at the same time, the cost of making poisons that can adapt to the 7 yang realm will skyrocket. After experiencing several painful lessons, the Huanshen sect finally came up with a way to put the divine spring on the Huanshen star, put the information in the poison, and let everyone enter the Huanshen star to find the fusion and absorption after taking the poison. Shen Quan, while ensuring that both parties can fulfill their agreements with each other. In addition, the poison also brought 2 important key messages. The first message is that the Pantheon is now being swallowed by the space fusion of the god-killing insect realm. This process will take at least 200 years. Within this time, the entire Pantheon is in a special space environment. This space environment will not affect the poison that everyone eats in their stomachs. At the same time, the current physical laws on Pantheon have not changed, and there are still modern weapons that can harm summoners. The second piece of information is that the ruling group of Pantheon is called the Pantheon Federation. The Pantheon Federation is composed of politicians on Pantheon and some low-level summoners. It controls the army on Pantheon because the Pantheon sect has completely broken away. Since the Alliance has lost the control of the Pantheon Federation, the attitude of the Pantheon Federation towards the Pantheon sect is not completely cooperative, and may even be hostile. Now, the entire Pantheon is in great chaos. As more and more Zerg and ancient relics appear on Pantheon, the Pantheon Federation is no longer able to effectively manage and control the situation. The information in these poisons flashed rapidly in Xiaopingan's head. A huge planet wrapped in desperate black and hellish dark red appeared in Xiaopingan's field of vision. It was rapidly growing and filling up in an instant. The vision of the entire space crack. Run quickly, those monsters are coming. I heard that the Hongdu Bridge has been blown up. The troops guarding the city are about to evacuate. Follow the troops and withdraw. Run quickly. Mommy, mommy. My child, my child. Woo 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 woo. After the brain was briefly dizzy, the surrounding noisy sounds suddenly poured into Xiaopingan's ears like a dirty flood. These were just human voices. A chaotic human voice came from the street outside into this crowded street. In the alley filled with debris, in addition to the sound of people, there are also the roar of police sirens and the sound of vehicle horns on the streets outside. In the sky, an airplane roars over, bringing a series of rolling waves to the city. The roar. One after another, panicked figures, some swift, some staggering, kept passing by the entrance of the alley. No one was interested in stopping and taking a look into the dark alley. Xiaopingan was in this alley, and the mist surging around him gradually dissipated. The other end of the alley has been blocked by a collapsed 3-story building. A large area of building ruins is behind Xiaopingan. At Xiaopingan's feet, there are pieces of broken bricks and stones. I remember that the last time I experienced such a chaotic scene was when I was on Earth avoiding a space invasion. Is this the Pantheon? Xiaopingan murmured to himself, raised his head and looked at the sky. The sky here was even darker. There was no sun or stars in the sky. Above the sky, there was a dark streak. The huge red crack covered most of the sky, like the bloody mouth of hell. In the somewhat dim vision, dark red blood light hung straight down from the sky. There are some small puddles formed by sewage on the ground in the alley. The sewage in the puddles is trembling at the moment, and there is a faint vibration sound of crawlers walking on the ground. A man who looked like a beggar and a tramp was sitting on the ground at the entrance of the alley, looking at the people running on the street and smiling stupidly. Everything in the world in front of me was like a chaotic dance hall with dim lights in a small county town. All the people were twisting exaggeratedly on the dance floor. Xiaopingan felt his body first. Everything was normal, and everything in the secret mandala was normal. Then he breathed a sigh of relief and slowly walked out of the alley. Outside the alley is a chaotic street, full of people running in panic, carrying bags and families, and the cars on the street are all jammed together due to traffic accidents. People kept running past Xiaopingan, but no one stopped. In this chaotic crowd, Xiaopingan was as quiet as a black reef in the waves. Xiaopingan's eyes scanned the street. He wanted to find a bookstore or a place with obvious place names. First, make sure where he was. Let's talk about the location. Unfortunately, there seems to be no bookstore on this street. This is a medium-sized city. There are probably tens of thousands of such cities in the Pantheon. There are many text symbols in the street windows and store entrances, but Xiaopingan doesn't recognize those text symbols. They are the words on the Pantheon, and they are different from any text that Xiaopingan has known before. However, here Xiaopingan can still understand what people say. A sweaty man wearing a windbreaker and glasses ran from behind Xiaopingan with a pale face, as if there was a ghost chasing behind him. The man wanted to catch up with the person in front because the man ran too hastily. Without paying attention, he suddenly bumped into Xiaopingan, and then fell to the ground in embarrassment. The man originally wanted to scold Xiaopingan, but when he saw Xiaopingan's horse face and triangular eyes, it seemed that he was not a good person, so he couldn't help but swallow the curse words that were already spitting out of his mouth. Xiaopingan stretched out his hand and pulled the man up. Ahem, may I ask, what is the name of the city? You're sick, don't stop me if you're sick. The man glared at Xiaopingan, and then continued to run forward panting. The tremors on the ground became more and more obvious. Xiaopingan looked towards where the people were running and saw an army appearing at the crossroads in front. Walking in front of the army were tanks and armored vehicles. The troops were choked by crowds fleeing through the streets. Take us away, we have to go too. We are taxpayers, why should we be left alone? The crowd was shouting and the streets were in chaos. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 590. Behind the army, among the armored and tank vehicles, there were many military trucks and off-road vehicles. The crowds rushed towards the army, and the streets became even more chaotic. Please give way, everyone, and get out of the way for the troops. We are performing a military mission. According to federal law, obstructing federal troops from performing their duties will result in a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Please get out of the way. An armed helicopter hovered over the troops, and the strong cyclone blew the branches and leaves of the trees on both sides of the street below to tremble. The large speaker on the helicopter kept shouting loudly at the crowd below. And shouting has no effect, it is more like throwing a little spark into an oil barrel. The crowd was angry. Despicable, you cowards, you took those officials and rich people to escape and left us behind. Is this your mission? Someone in the crowd shouted angrily. Don't think we don't know that those rich people, as well as the officials and their families in Kamlan City, are on your military vehicles. We just saw it. We are taxpayers and we also ask for the protection of the military. Get those officials and rich people off. The crowd blocking the troop vehicle was roaring angrily. The anger of the crowd is justified. When the crisis comes, the so-called federal army prepares to move to a safer place with a small number of public servants and lucky ones, while leaving most of the taxpayers and owners when left behind. The anger of those left behind burned like wildfire. A young man in a trench coat suddenly rushed out from the crowd, holding a lit Molotov cocktail in his hand. He threw the Molotov cocktail towards a military truck in the middle of the troops. A ball of flames burned on the roof and outside of the truck. Amidst the screams, several well-dressed men and women ran out of the truck in panic. At this time, The few people dressed in ordinary people's clothes who jumped out of the military vehicle immediately confirmed everyone's speculation. Sure enough, the rich and officials all ran away with the army. The crowd became even more angry. Why can they follow you? Just because they are rich and powerful. Several soldiers rushed towards the young man who threw the Molotov cocktail, and more people rushed towards the vehicles of those troops. The soldiers who rushed over and the crowd who rushed over pushed each other, and the situation at the scene became even more serious. Mess. B.A. Amidst the chaos, a gunshot was heard, and the crowd dispersed in panic, only to see a citizen lying on the ground. In front of the citizen, there was a soldier pointing a gun at him. Shooting, killing, troops shooting, screamed the crowd who dispersed in panic. Da-da-da-da-da, the machine gun on the armored vehicle suddenly fired, but it did not point at people, but fired warning shots. The crowd became even more panicked. Before, everyone thought that the troops did not dare to fire at them, but when the troops' guns, as soon as the sound rang out, someone fell to the ground. Those who had just surrounded him in anger suddenly felt their panic and vulnerability. This is the last warning, this is the last warning. Everyone should leave immediately and do not interfere with the movement of the troops, otherwise the troops will open fire. The voice from the hovering helicopter was already extremely severe. The crowd turned from angry to panic. Facing the situation in front of him, Xiaopinghan has been watching with cold eyes. He doesn't want to help anyone. The more critical the situation is, the selfishness and ugliness of human nature, as well as the corruption and arrogance of power, are more and more vividly displayed. It is these when things are intertwined, chaos and disorder are created. If the situation on Pantheon were replaced by the Earth, it would probably be the same. But the shouts of the crowd just now also brought a key message to Xiaopinghan. This city is Jinlan City. Xiaopinghan instantly accurately positioned Jinlan City on the three-dimensional map in his mind in the southeast of the Roma Prefecture administrative region of Pantheon. It is about 7,000 miles away from the coordinate point of Chidorihara B 1768. For more than 10 kilometers, heading west from Kamran City, passing through the Nikko Mountains and the Luna Sea, and passing through 5 administrative districts, you can reach Chidorihara. Nothing is more important than advancing to the Seven Yang realm. Xiaopinghan is ready to leave. But at this moment, suddenly, a ray of fire fell from the sky, accurately hitting the helicopter hovering over the troops. The armed helicopter burned instantly, spun, fell violently from the sky, and landed directly on the crowded place. Among the crowd, the helicopter's whirling blades were like sharp blades and huge cutting machines. If the whirling blades hit a person, they can directly break the body into pieces. The rolling fuselage and its blades cut through the dense crowd of countermeasures. All of a sudden, flesh and blood flew everywhere, and an alley of flesh and blood was created directly on the street. It was so miserable. Boom. The helicopter then exploded, and a large area of the crowd within 50 meters fell again. And all this happened in an instant. Everyone was shocked. The demonic insects are coming. Countless people in the crowd screamed and began to run away. In the sky, a ferocious-looking black flying flame insect vibrated its 2 pairs of huge wings and suddenly broke through the gloomy clouds. Like a dive bomber, it dived towards the crowds and troops below the ground at a very fast speed. A stream of fire erupted from the mouth of the winged flame bug, sweeping over the vehicles that were crowded on the ground. 7 or 8 military trucks and military off-road vehicles burned and exploded in the flames of the winged flame bug, and the troops were in chaos. Some of those military trucks and off-road vehicles were carrying soldiers, and some were carrying the city's dignitaries and wealthy people. When the evil vehicles were set on fire, the people sitting inside instantly turned into torches. One by one, they screamed and jumped out of the car, their bodies melted by the flames of the winged flame bugs in the blink of an eye. The ordinary people who had been gathered on the street wished they had 2 extra legs and ran away in all directions, howling like ghosts. The two missiles on the anti-aircraft crawlers in the army soared into the sky and chased the winged flame bug. The armored vehicles on the ground also fired at the winged flame bug. For a while, the place that was still bustling just now city streets suddenly turned into battlefields, filled with the sound of cannons and gunshots. Boom! The flying winged flame bug locked by two missiles nimbly passed through several buildings in the city streets. One of the missiles hit a building, and the sky was full of broken glass in the explosion of fire. It fell down and smashed the heads of countless people. A huge piece of broken glass fell from an altitude of tens of meters, cutting the head of a man who was running in a panic into two halves. He fell to the road all of a sudden, making several other people running around him scream in fear. There was another missile that continued to chase the winged flame insect. When it caught up with the winged flame insect, it was detonated by a fireball spit out by the flying flame insect. The flames and violent shock waves of the anti-aircraft missile explosion exploded like a huge fireball over the roof of a building, sweeping across the wings of the flying fire bug. One of the wings of the flying fire bug suddenly it breaks into pieces and burns. The flying flame bugs with flaming wings were smoking, like a falling airplane, slamming down from the sky towards the streets below the city. Their rolling bodies rushed through the panicked crowd on the ground. More than 10 people were there. It was smashed into pieces by the flying winged flame bugs and turned into pieces of meat all over the ground. There was not one winged flame bug, but two. This winged flame bug had just been injured and fell to the ground. The other winged flame bug flew from the other direction, facing the people on the ground who were running away in panic, and a ray of fire fell from the sky, sweeping through the crowd. Dozens of people were caught in the flames of the winged flame bugs, their bodies burning and melting like candles. 2 more anti-aircraft missiles were fired over. In addition to the winged flame bugs, several huge black mantis bugs also quietly appeared at the other end of the street. Seeing the mantis appearing, several tanks from the army had already rushed over and fired fiercely at the charging mantis. The ordinary people who were near the tank were directly shocked by the tank's cannon with their ears bleeding when the tank opened fire. They screamed and fell to the ground holding their heads.